You're a superhero.
Today on the channel, welcome, my name is Reese, and this is Behenix, and today, our very first video, and why not start with an absolute banger. Today, we are reviewing The Last of Us Part 2. It took a little bit longer for me to release this video than I would like, mainly just because I didn't want to get my first thoughts of this game out, just because I didn't think it would be the right response. But a week on, I take a look back at the game, I take a look at what I loved about the game and what I hated about the game. What's going to happen today is I'm going to walk you through the good parts and the bad parts. There will be spoilers ahead, but stay tuned guys, because this is going to be a wild ride of a video. Once again, our very first video on this channel. Welcome to Behenix, and welcome to The Last of Us Part 2 game review. Hope you enjoy guys. Let's talk about the biggest positive coming out of this game for me. For me, this is 100% the best part of the game, and for a lot of people I've seen, no matter what opinions you have about this game, everyone seems to be united on this topic, and that's just how this game looks. Just everything about this game is amazing, and seeing as though it really works in well with the combat, I'm also going to be talking about that in this part as well. I want to talk about how this game looks, just, you know, from the snowy mountains to the vast forests to the concrete jungles of Seattle, all the way to the end of the game when you're in California. It just looks amazing at every single point, at every time of the day and night. This game always shines and never lets me down when it comes to just standing still and looking around at your environment. From even going through, you know, just run down buildings to fighting your enemies in all different types of environment, from like, you know, dirty streets to, you know, going through the forest and like battling him through the trees. It's just fantastic. It's so hard to put into words how well Naughty Dog have done with how this game looks, and combat is improved mainly because of this. Obviously it feels quite similar to the first Last of Us game, but at the same time you can tell they've tweaked it, you can tell they've added a little bit more detail, and this is where the graphics also shine. There is no better feeling in this game than getting a headshot. There is no better feeling in this game than creeping up behind your enemy or running straight at your enemy and just cracking him over the head with a bat and watching their blood and their brains just seep out of their head. As gruesome as that sounds, if you've played this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly the feeling that you got with this as well. Zombies, I say zombies, the infected look incredibly good in this game, from the clickers to the new added variants of the zombies. I think they're called rattlers, or I'm not sure what they're called. They're basically bloaters, but when they die they explode. It just looks really good. The fungal infection looks disgusting all over the zombies and all over the buildings. It looks absolutely horrible, but at the same time it really draws you into the universe that is The Last of Us 2. That is probably my favourite part about the game, as I've said. Combat does feel very smooth. I mean, I talk about how good it looks. It feels a lot smoother than the first game. I wouldn't say the first game was clunky, but I would definitely say this is a step up from the first game, and as it should be. I mean, it's 7 years on, so they should learn from the mistakes that they made and build on the good parts that they built. For me, the shooting is very good. You also really get to see how well the bow shines in this game, should I say, just because of the way you fight different kinds of enemies. You fight an enemy in this game called the Scars. Obviously you've got the wolves, which is your standard military based, you know, enemy with, you know, the guns and the knives. Oh, and the dogs, which is a really nice addition to the game, by the way, when you have to creep through a building and you have to make sure a dog doesn't smell or hear you, because they have, you know, they're far more perceptive than the enemies. But for me, another thing that really shines about this game is you have a different enemy. You're caught sort of in between a war between the wolves and the Scars. Absolutely really scary enemy for me, not because of how they look or anything, but just the way they fight you, just the way they make the bow, you know, really shine, as in that's their main weapon. That's the weapon that you will see them using the most. But also the way they fight, they use whistles to communicate to each other, so you don't really know if they spotted you or not if you hide in the tall grasses of the game. When you first meet them, you are trying to creep through a load of grass and there's a lot of Scars around you, and you just sort of really creeping towards, like, you know, the end, and you hear a whistle and you think, what was that? And then all of a sudden a bow just comes out of nowhere and just hits you. It's really, really intense, and it's really, really fun to play. But as for the graphics, as I say, absolutely fantastic. It's probably the best point of the game, and the combat is improved. One of my favourite parts also of the game. But let's move on to something else. So let's go ahead and talk about the story and the characters of this game. Now for me, this is where the game really starts to show its flaws, and it really starts to let us down. I'm not going to talk about every single character in the game. I'm just going to be talking about, you know, the most important characters, because, you know, if it did all of them, we'd be here, you know, forever. So let's start with Joel. Now, there isn't really much to say about Joel, because, spoiler alert, and if you do not want any spoilers, this is where you pause the video. Joel dies. Joel dies in the first, I think it's 20 minutes of the game. And for me, it's, and I'm not exaggerating, probably the worst decision maybe in the whole of The Last of Us 2. Mainly because he was, you know, half of what we loved about the first game. It was Joel and Ellie. It was a story of Joel and Ellie. We wanted to know what was, you know, what was going on in the second one, and, you know, how the story was going to progress throughout, you know, the part 2. But for me, Joel dying is really where the problems start and never really recover from. Because you have Ellie. You have another great character here, Ellie, who you find out a little bit later into the, you know, into the story that Joel and Ellie were having problems, that Joel, you know, finally confessed to Ellie that, you know, there was a cure, but she would have had to die to save everybody. You find that out in a flashback, by the way, which, by the way, is probably the best parts of the game, the flashbacks that you have with Joel. You have several with Joel, and you have a couple with different characters, but we'll get into that in a minute. But Ellie for me is, and then this is very hard to put into words. Ellie for me has such a different character dynamic in this game, not just with other characters, but with herself and how her character has changed. That for me, I really didn't enjoy playing Ellie as much as I wanted to. I didn't like the character of Ellie, mainly because, I mean, not because, you know, she lost her innocence, but because she changed into just this nasty person. I feel like everyone who you run into in this game, I mean, not just because Joel was killed and the whole story is based on finding your revenge against, you know, these people who killed Joel. But for me, Ellie has turned into, like, just a horrible raider who does not care about anyone, who has no conscience when it comes to, you know, sparing people's lives, when it comes to just slaughtering dozens of people, and has no feeling. Back when you saw her in The Last of Us 1, she killed a couple of people, and you really saw her character change, and you really saw her conscience starts to kick in. That doesn't happen in this game. What we see instead is a really weird character development where she has this dynamic with another character called Dina. And this is where another part of The Last of Us 2 really starts to fall down for me, because Dina is sort of the replacement for Joel. She's Ellie's love interest, and which, by the way, if you didn't know, Ellie is gay. And this game was a lot of like really like surprise and shock to people that Ellie was gay, and I'm not sure why, because there was a DLC in the first Last of Us where you find out she was gay from a very, very young age. Just to go over that a little bit, you know the story of when she was bit in the shopping mall, and that's how she found out she was immune. But moving on, Dina is just a nothing character for me. So we pretty much start the game, which by the way sort of teases you where she's learning the guitar, and it skips like 4 years or something. I'm not sure exactly how long it skips, but you know, it's quite a long time. So we start the game at night after, where Ellie kissed Dina, or Dina kissed Ellie, should I say. You know, it really doesn't matter either way around. And it really quickly gets into, you know, that Ellie quite likes Dina, and then they go to a cabin and they smoke a bit of weed, and then, you know, they sleep together, blah 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 blah. But it never really moves on from that. I mean, Dina helps Ellie track down the people that murdered Joel when they go to Seattle. She's pregnant, and that really sort of affects the way Ellie, you know, can move around She always has to look after Dina. They eventually find a place to, rest up, and that's where Ellie sort of sets up a base, and then she goes into the deeper area of Seattle, to look for the people who murdered Joel, and to find Tommy. By the way, they try to catch up to Tommy, who has left a couple days. I think it's like a day earlier that Ellie did to go track down these people. Tommy, by the way. You don't see as much as Tommy as I would like to. I mean, I quite liked Tommy in the first game. I really thought and wanted to see a little bit more of his character development. But they eventually catch up to Tommy, and this guy called Jesse also catches up with him. Jesse is also another one of those characters who really does not interest me. You have this guy who looks after Ellie, and he's her friend, and that's really all you find out about Jesse. I hope I got his name right. I'm pretty sure it is Jesse. But as I say, Ellie and Dina's storyline together really doesn't interest me. I feel like the love interest angle really develops a little bit too quickly. By the end of the game, they're living in a house, and then Dina abandons Ellie at the end of the game because Ellie decides to go track down the next character that I'm going to be talking about. And oh boy, let's talk about Abby. So Abby, the leader of these gang of people who murdered Joel. I mean, there is a backstory. If you remember correctly, in The Last of Us 1, when Joel went to save Ellie in the doctor's room, he killed that doctor. That doctor was Abby's father, and that's why Abby wants revenge on Joel, because obviously, he killed Dad. The problem with Abby is, and I don't say this lightly, the problem with Abby is she is a horrible person. She sort of uses her friends and, relies a little bit too much on her friends. And, some of her friends at the end of the game are like, you're an arsehole and you have always been an arsehole. She does, reprehensible things, to so many people. She's definitely the more aggressive character. And by the way, you get to play as Abby for quite a lot of the game, like at least 7 hours, I think it is, of the game. And wow, that's all I'm gonna say. Abby, yeah, she's portrayed as this horrible person, and obviously you're on Joel's side, you're on Ellie's side, because they're your favorite characters, and she's just killed your favorite characters, or character, should I say? But then all of a sudden the game tries to make you feel sorry for Abby by taking you through her perspective and her background story. And it's really weird how the game sort of approaches this in a way that I feel like the story is told completely the wrong way around. I mean, if you was going to play as Abby for 7 hours of the game, I would rather have played Abby for 7 hours of the game first, and then I would have rather played Ellie, tracking down these, her friends and these people, that wronged her, because you would have known who they were. At the time, when you're murdering these people, you don't know their background, you don't know what their relation is to Abby, which eventually you find out. And for me, this really doesn't work, because it doesn't. How do I say this? It doesn't make me feel bad that I'm killing these people, just because the way the story is ordered. I feel like if I knew who these characters were and I was Abby first, and then I went to the mountains to track down Joel, this happened, and then I went back to Seattle to play Abby's story, and then I played Ellie's story, I would feel a bit more bad about killing these characters that I'd got to know. So that for me is really the problem with this story. But now, don't get me wrong, the generic story of let's go track down the people who wronged me is a bit of a stereotype when it comes to when it comes to games, and for me, I never thought The Last of Us would really go there. But it's an interesting story, but as I say, it isn't really as compelling as I would like it to be. Abby is a horrible person. Ellie has turned into just an unlikable person. There's uninteresting characters that surround them both. And for me, the best part of the game are the flashbacks where you get to play as Joel and Ellie. So I mean, I sound like I'm crapping all over this game, and I really left it a little bit longer, as I said in the intro, you know, to get my thoughts and feelings out there. But for me, this is how I feel about the game. I enjoyed the story, but what made it disappointing is it was a Last of Us game and the order that the story was told in. So in essence, The Last of Us Part 2 is a story and a game that shines in some places, really stands out in others, and in most really lets me as a person down. Now, that's not to put a downer on the whole game. I mean, I did enjoy some parts of the story. As I say, the graphics are incredible, the combat system is improved. There's a lot of really positive moments in this game, but my one problem is it's just not as good as the original. It's not as good as the story of Joel and Ellie. It's not as good as, you know, the epic journey that first game took you on. For me, it really lets itself down. And to be honest, I do think Naughty Dog could have, you know, really could have done a better job. But as I say, it's not all bad. I would definitely recommend playing it. I mean, I wouldn't just give it a skip entirely. I wouldn't just, you know, listen to what I'm saying and just, you know, don't play it at all. I would go and give it a go yourself. You know, you might have different opinions than me, but for me, Ellie is a character that has evolved into someone who is just not as likable. You don't care about her as much, whether that be because, you know, she's not a child anymore, or she's just not a nice person. Joel, the main character of the first game, the person who many gamers fell in love with this protagonist, whether it's because of, you know, where he came from, what happened at the very start of the game, or the relationship he started to develop with Ellie throughout the game, you know, from going from him and her really not trusting each other, you know, not speaking to each other, to the end of the game where they really became sort of a father-daughter pairing, and Joel really looking out for Ellie and really caring for her as, you know, as a dad, and if she was Sarah. And I think that's really what lets The Last of Us Part 2 down. You don't really have that sort of relationship in this game. I mean, they try and, you know, accomplish it by hooking Ellie up with another character, and for me it really doesn't work. And if you're going to take away the best part about the first game, at least, you know, try and replace it with something better and more meaningful than, you know, what we was given. But, you know, that's just my opinion. You guys might have a different opinion than me. Go and play the game, go and see what you think. You know, don't judge it on what I'm saying. I mean, you know, it's not gospel what I'm saying. This is just one man's opinion, and I was just disappointed with what I got. I was really looking forward to the game, and it really let me down. But with that being said, it does have great parts, really enjoyable parts. The combat system, as we've gone over, and for me, it gets a 7.5. And the positives really get it to that level, whereas the negatives really, you know, stop it from getting to that upper echelon of games. And, you know, for me, where the first game is. But for now, guys, that is me wrapping up The Last of Us Part 2 review. If you did like the video, please subscribe to the channel. Give the video an actual like, please. Turn on those bell notifications. You can follow us on all social medias, Instagram, Twitter, all that good shit. But for now, guys, I will speak to you in the next video. Peace out.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.